center of Mexico City lay the ruins of the magnificent Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. When the Spanish conquistadors first happened on the city in 1519, they were shocked to find a metropolis of pyramids and palaces as large as Paris. At the time, the population exceeded 200,000 people. But life for these Aztecs was about to change dramatically for the worse because of geography. Our story is called Geography as Destiny. What exactly does that mean?
Geography is one of those great hidden secrets of academia in the United States. It's not just about maps and memorizing state capitals. In fact, contemporary geography is not about that at all. And what geographers are interested in is how humans organize our lives on the earth on which we live. And that has to do, on the one hand, with a set of social and economic and political processes through which societies organize themselves. But it has to do with the biophysical environment that is necessary to support human life. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we consume, the shelters we have to create. And geographers try and understand that.
How about the word destiny? According to the dictionary, destiny is a hidden power that controls what happens in the future. So here's a big question for you. What's your destiny? Are you destined to become rich? Or maybe famous? If this is some kind of hidden power, do you think you can control your own destiny? As an individual, maybe you can. You can train for an occupation and hopefully go out and do it. But you can only control what you can control. If you're very short in stature, you'll probably never be a professional basketball player. You get the idea. But how about the destiny of a civilization? What factors determine the success or failure of an entire culture? Economist Dr. Thomas Sowell believes the physical environment plays a huge role. That their location determines their success or failure.
Most of the great cities of the world have arisen on navigable waterways, rivers or harbors, sometimes large lakes or inland seas. But such waterways are not equally or randomly distributed around the world. They are very common in Western Europe and very rare in sub-Saharan Africa. Navigable waterways have been economically crucial, especially during the millennia of human history before the development of railroads, trucks, and airplanes.
Was it destiny for some ancient civilizations to thrive and grow powerful, while others struggled and lagged behind? Steven Pinker is a world-renowned psychologist at Harvard and an author of books on language, mind, and human nature. Like Dr. Sowell, he thinks the ability to easily connect with other cultures is critical for success.
There are a number of ways in which civilizations become complex, primarily through the aggregation and exchange of ideas. No culture is smart enough to come up with anything useful on its own. Sophisticated cultures are ones that sit in the middle of a catchment area where innovations from other cultures can be aggregated in kind of greatest hits collections. And so isolated areas are, as we say, provincial, parochial.
The interconnectivity of societies, based on geographic access to ports and trade routes, ultimately allowed some civilizations to thrive through trade, but also by providing access to cultural advancement. For instance, The Roman Empire benefited by receiving the intellectual and material spoils of Western European coastal harbors, including those along the Iberian Peninsula.
Geography that allows movement of people and ideas, with rivers, with highways, port cities tend to become more culturally sophisticated.
Steven Pinker and Thomas Sowell believe environment strongly determines destiny. But Dr. Eric Shepard feels civilizations can change their destiny, even in the face of geographic challenges.
And we have to look at other things that shape prosperity and poverty other than what's just available locally. It's about inventiveness, it's about not being restricted by the resources you have, finding ways to transform and make those available to you when they're not naturally there.
A great example of the push and pull of destiny in geography is the story of the Spanish conquistadors versus the Aztecs in Mexico. The Aztecs created a vibrant culture with impressive cities despite living in a location that left them cut off from the rest of the world. They flourished in Mexico's High Valley region as compared to other indigenous groups in the area.
Humans historically lived in small, mobile societies, in societies which took advantage as best they could, and often in highly knowledgeable ways, of the biophysical possibilities of their environment. So in tropical forests, for example, humans developed ways of clearing a space in the forest, growing the crops you need, and as fertility starts to decline there, move and do that somewhere else, and in this way working with the environment to support themselves in small groups.
Around the 13th century, one of these native groups, called the Mexica, was struggling to survive in the dry northern territory. They set off on a journey of many years to find a better place to live. Along the way, they faced skirmishes against other tribes. Eventually, they reached a wide wooded valley surrounded by hills and volcanoes. At its center was a great body of water called Lake Texcoco. The area was rich with birds and fish, and the Mexica decided these were sacred signs. They settled on an island in the middle of the lake. They called their new community Tenochtitlan, the place of Tenoch, their leader. These Mexica are known today as the Aztec.
What happened historically is that over time, larger scale social organizations emerged. And at the center of those were cities, places of large and permanent habitation.
Many of the Aztec settled in the surrounding area and farmed the fertile land.
The urban elites, through propagating a series of religious beliefs but also military power, made peasants an offer they could not refuse. Grow as much food as you can and God will look after you. Don't grow the food and we will come and make sure you do.
Over the next century, Tenochtitlan grew as the capital of a widespread empire that expanded across Central America. The Aztecs had conquered their challenging environment and changed their destiny. The Aztecs in North America were not connected to a global trade hub. This great empire succeeded without the benefit of steel or advanced weapons. As great as their civilization had become, without these advancements, the Aztecs were easy prey for the coming invaders. Across the globe, the Spanish lived a world beyond imagination for the Aztec people. In the 15th century, the great European power of Spain was able to travel the globe because of cultural advances that they had borrowed from other cultures in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. By this time, Columbus and Spanish explorers had reached the New World. They steered their ships with rudders invented in China. They navigated with instruments based on trigonometry invented in Egypt. Their calculations were done with numbers invented in India. And much of what they knew about the world in general was acquired by reading material written in letters invented by the Romans. International trade also brought the Spanish steel, gunpowder, and advanced weapons. In 1519, Hernán Cortés and his conquistadors sailed to the New World to colonize Mexico. In November 1519, the Spaniards reached the city of Tenochtitlan.
When Cortés arrives in the Central Valley where Mexico City now is, he's stunned by the cultural sophistication, the agricultural sophistication, the sheer size of the settlement that we now call Mexico City at that point in time. He did not expect to find something like that.
By the time the Spanish forces reached the Aztec capital, Cortés' army included 600 conquistadors armed with swords, crossbows, muskets, horses, and cannons. The Aztecs were no match for the Spanish. By August 1521, Tenochtitlan was under the control of Cortés and his conquistadors, marking the fall of the Aztec Empire.
We have to take into account the ways in which that place is connected, for better or worse, to other places around the world. The pre-Columbian civilizations which developed after the 0 AD, those societies clearly were not learning from what had happened in the Middle East 5,000 years earlier. There weren't those kinds of connections.
Put differently, the size of a people's cultural universe and what they learn from other civilizations influences how far they can develop.
More recent studies that try to look at why certain nations are more successful than others in terms of their prosperity, their quality of life, their peace, their safety. And in those wonkish statistical studies that try to predict why at time 2 is one country more successful than another, you look back at time 1, what were the roots, what were the seeds, and often it's education. Likewise, in comparing cultures, why are certain cultures successful wherever they migrate to, anywhere in the world? And a cultural value on education is part of that.
But the other thing that matters is the ability of people to take advantage of their inventiveness, to really make the most of this situation. So to make these civilizations that we have on the Earth's surface, humans have to interact with the natural environment to create conditions of life which hopefully enable them to live and prosper. And it happens in a differentiated way around the world.
While the rest of the world exchanges goods, knowledge, and innovations from a vast cultural universe, isolated people are limited to what they alone are able to develop. Few, if any, of the great advances in human civilization have come from isolated peoples.
Thomas Sowell feels geography plays a big part in our societies and cultures. But everyone, individually, has a choice of what to do with their opportunities. To use their ingenuity, creativity, and perseverance to change their own destiny.